Watch this claim that fundamentalist homeschool Christian fathers spank their wives and older daughters.
Children in homeschooling fundamentalist families are spanked all the way up into adulthood, and that includes older daughters, and that includes wives. And this is something the fundamentalist husbands do to their wives.
This clip came from Amazon Prime's hit piece Shiny Happy People, a docuseries released in June of 2023. Tia Levings is a woman who has sadly had a very difficult life and grew up in a family that taught a version of Christianity that is outside the mainstream and not in line with the way the Duggar family taught, the Institute in Basic Life Principles taught, or Bill Gothard taught. Tia's interview was exactly what Shiny Happy People producers wanted. It made the fringe, overly evil, strict beliefs of some extremist Christians seem like the same as what IBLP taught or the Duggars practiced. But of course, it isn't true, like much of what was claimed in Shiny Happy People. In fact, Tia herself says that she didn't even discover IBLP until she was married and had a child. And notice, even in the next clip where she is describing her life, they bring in the Duggars to link them immediately to everything Tia is going to be describing.
My background, well, I grew up in Michigan. I became directly involved with IBLP as a new mom. They were looking for new families to bring into IBLP way of thinking. I was a young wife looking for somebody to teach me. I'm sure the Duggars had mentors too that taught them how they should be doing these things.
As you can see here, she had already grown up in a family that had taught some very different and strict ideas and hadn't had anything to do with IBLP at all. But then she starts to describe some of the very strange practices that her fringe group taught and tries to link those things to the Duggar family. For example, they took a clip where she is talking about something called a domestic discipline contract and made it seem like this is what the Duggars and other IBLP participants did in their families.
For example, if you forget to say yes, sir, or my lord, when you're talking to your husband, then there's a consequence. There's an implement that's agreed upon as part of the contract and domestic discipline contract. There are rules for whether or not you're allowed to cry, if there's going to involve what they call corner time, where you go sit in the corner, if there will be sex afterward or not as part of the restoration of the relationship. No matter how old you are, the whole point is inflict pain until you have the submissive confession that the oppressor wants. When the show first premiered, I instantly recognized their belief pattern as my own. My first thought was, oh my God, are they really gonna show America what my life is like? What's America gonna say when they find out how these people live?
When I saw this part of Shiny Happy People, I had never heard of domestic discipline contracts. I have been around Christians of all kinds for my entire life, have been in churches of all denominations in the last 35 years, and never heard of this at all. In my investigation, I've asked other Christians, who most people would consider to be fundamentalists, if they knew anything about this. Most had no idea, and others said they had heard of it, but they had never heard it taught in any church and didn't know anyone who practiced it. They also said it was not a Christian belief or practice and were appalled at the very idea. Then I asked about this claim Tia made in Shiny Happy People.
Children in homeschooling fundamentalist families are spanked all the way up into adulthood, and that includes older daughters, and that includes wives. And this is something the fundamentalist husbands do to their wives.
Tia may have had a family that did some abusive and crazy things when she was growing up, and that is very sad. But this claim is just a flat-out lie. Fundamentalist Christians do not do this. There are fringe extremists in any group of people who do crazy and outlandish things. The Duggars never did this. IBLP never taught this, nor did Bill Gothard. In fact, he said to treat a wife like a teacup.
Treat her like a china teacup, not a coffee mug.
In the IBLP Men's Manual, the first instructions on how to use the manual say to go to page 132 and read about how to be a kind and loving man without pride or anger. Among the things on this list are: earn the right to be heard, do not demand it. Demonstrate a servant's heart and a learner's spirit. Learn to see situations from your family's point of view. Find out what offends your family and correct it. Refuse to be angry or disappointed when your family fails. The very idea that the Duggars, IBLP, or Gothard would practice or teach that fathers were to spank their wives or older daughters is completely unfounded and a flat-out lie. This is another slanderous narrative created in Shiny Happy People. Then Tia suggests that the Duggars aren't really showing what fundamentalist Christian families look like because they aren't showing the abuse she has described.
I don't think America wants to live like fundamentalist families, but they don't understand what fundamentalist families look like anymore. It's been shined up and put on TLC.
But the way the Duggars lived wasn't like the way Tia grew up or lived in her marriage. According to Tia, she was in an abusive marriage from the very start. I always try to keep in mind, though, that anything I hear from anyone giving testimony is only showing their side of the story. Tia's account of her marriage sounds like a very evil and abusive situation where she was in a constant state of fear.
By the time I was an 18-year-old woman, I had fully expected to just be nothing more than a submissive wife and mother. And then I met somebody at church. I didn't have instant attraction to this person. I didn't feel safe with this person, but I had spent my lifetime praying for the man God was going to bring me to marry. And so I bent my will around this idea. I had successfully remained pure. I had followed all of the rules. And I had spent the engagement fending off physical advances and trying to save myself for the wedding night. On my wedding night, I was raped 3 times. And after that, found out I was pregnant. I needed my baby to sleep through the night because if my baby cried at night and my husband didn't sleep, there was going to be violence.
If the testimony Tia gives here is accurate, I can totally see why she would be angry now. She feels that the things she was taught were all wrong and has completely turned around her ideas about life and Christianity in general. It gets even worse when she describes how she says things went when she escaped this abusive relationship.
And in here is Tia doing dishes again.
In fundamentalism, suffering means holiness. So I was just tapping into that narrative of, you're too happy, something's wrong. In October of 2007, my husband followed me around the house for 4 hours with a length of firewood, promising to bludgeon me to death. Then out of the blue, he goes, I'm out of here. And I heard a voice in my head that said, run right now. So I went and got the kids, I put them in the car, and he had gone back to his office to get his gun. And if I had stayed home, we would be dead. I escaped by the skin of my teeth, so I'm never gonna say it's easy.
According to Tia's testimony, she was in a horrible circumstance, living with a violent and abusive man. And she had done all the things she thought she should do and had been taught to do by her parents and those around her that were in the fringe group before she found IBLP. She came into IBLP with a certain mindset. She had been taught to live in the extreme and found herself in a terrible place because of it. This next clip shows that in the IBLP Basic Seminar, Bill Gothard taught how important balance is to living a contented and true Christian life, and that when someone gets disappointed in things that happen around them, they can swing from one extreme to another.
Several years ago, some alumni invited a 14-year-old girl to the seminar. And I talked to the parents, I knew the parents, and I pled with them, please don't let your daughter go to that seminar without you going with her. And parents said, well, no, we're kind of busy, but we know our daughter needs it. That daughter was into immorality. She was into drugs. The parents didn't follow the counsel. They didn't come with her. The daughter came, and here's what I said to the father and the mother. You need to be there with her and understand what the seminar is saying. Because if your daughter comes, it's likely that she's over here in immorality and drugs, and here's the truth, and here's the Christ-like living. Your daughter very well may get excited about the Christian life, and she'll swing back here. But rather than staying here, she'll go over here. The Christian life does not work any better over here than over here. She needs to have your direction to know where center is, to know where balance is, because Satan is always trying to get us out of balance.
It seems that this is where Tia has gone, along with many of the other people I've been featuring on this channel from shiny happy people who are now atheists. They were unhappy or disappointed with the way things went in their own lives or families, and so they went from one extreme of an overly active conscience and living with a fear-based Christian life that they couldn't live up to the other extreme of atheism. They never applied balance, and this caused them to never be content and happy in the Christian life. As he said, it doesn't work either way, one extreme or the other. Balance is needed in all things. I believe there were some mothers and fathers in IBLP who did not take this advice to heart or what I read from the men's manual. By the way, I asked Tia her religious affiliation now, and she said she does not want to reveal that, and she doesn't reveal it to anyone who asks. What is Tia doing at this point? Like some others who were involved in IPLP and are now disgruntled, she is making a business out of being a victim and blaming Christian fundamentalists for the problems that were in her life and marriage. I'm very sorry she had so much pain, and I hope she eventually finds peace and contentment in the life with Christ the way it should be. Next time.
He took me by the hand. We started to walk through the dark hallways. And just as we opened the door, I saw that there was still a male staff assistant sitting at the computer doing some work. And Bill was startled. He did not expect that man to be in there.
Another shiny happy people story used to suggest sexual abuse that just doesn't add up. We will go into her whole story next time. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe.